weird video games.
Okay, I don't think there's any possible way to set this up for you. Just take a look.
Imagine seeing this on your TV screen, and being handed this controller to play it. What is this? I mean, okay, it appears to be an MC Escher-inspired building with all kinds of impossible architecture based on perspective tricks, and strangely, that's not even the weird part. There's little blobs running around this impossible maze, and that's not even the weird part. The weird part is... well... oh, hey, I must have done something because now the blobs are moving in the opposite direction. Okay, so that's happening. How did this game come about? Well, that's weird too. You may be aware that there were two of these outlandish video game consoles at the time with these ridiculous controllers. Mattel had their Intellivision, and Coleco had their Colecovision. Naturally, they were rivals, fighting each other, while also mutually fighting to defeat Atari, with its stupid, normal, usable controller. I was thinking about making a StarCraft analogy here, but I couldn't decide which company was the Protoss. Now, it's not weird that a lot of games were on more than one of these consoles at a time. All three companies wanted popular arcade games ported to their system, and all three had third-party developers seeking them out who wanted to reach players on many different consoles at once. But here's the thing. Illusions was conceived by and initially developed by Mattel, the Intellivision people, but it only got released on the ColecoVision. Yes, Mattel designed a game that only their competition would end up profiting from. Why? It's confusing. It appears that Illusions was never completed, and years later when the market crashed, Coleco took it off their hands and released it on their own console. And this is the game they successfully and sneakily snatched up from their opponent. Blobs endlessly bouncing in circles around a maze that cannot be. So let's look at the manual. A game this bizarre, confusing, and nondescript has just 2 tiny pages. Really? 2 pages? It took me 3 pages of the script I'm reading off right now to describe this one screen, and that's after I edited out 16 pages of confused screaming. Oh wait, there's 2 manuals? I think. Neither of them are labeled manual or instructions. One of them is titled The Key, and the other The Legend. Like they were taken from a lame t-shirt 20 years later. What do we learn from these booklets? Not much. The Key has a couple of vague hints without any actual explanation of controls or what your actual objective is. And The Legend is almost entirely made up of poetry? Well, we do deduce the blobs are called glebes. Fair enough. I don't think any name you give them is gonna seem odd after what we've seen so far, so sure. You could call them nerd thermoses, stupid monkey balls, or just beat it that doo-doo da, and that's just freestyle scat on my part. Or Bavarian butt biters. Yeah, I think I heard that name somewhere before. Pretty sure it's legit. The objective... oh good! Finally, an objective! Is to merge them all into one glebe. But how do you do that? They all always move in the same direction. See, there's the trick. When they reach certain points on the map, you can press one of these 2 top buttons to make them jump across. Okay, now this is looking more like an actual game. Like, seriously, up until this point, it just looked and felt like things happening that are beyond your understanding or control for your ColecoVision. It was as if an occult hand had forced you to fork out money for the privilege of open palm slamming this cartridge into the slot, only for you to sit there and go, hey, neat. Stuff moving around. Anyway, where these exact points are not marked, and are only vaguely intuitive, so you'll have some trial and error here. Then just experiment with moving them back and forth while one is airborne, and once all your glebes are merged together into just one, it can phase itself through a mirror, and then you win. Yeah, just like that. I should mention that there are some design notes of this game floating around the Introsphere, and it seems the original Mattel developers didn't intend for these creatures to be blobs, and in fact just ordinary people. So originally this game was going to be just human beings merging into each other on an Escher painting in order to be able to walk through a mirror. What the redonkulous donkey what? Oh, and there's a prototype in the wild too, so you can see for yourself. Now, as a side note, can anyone explain to me why, for most of these games I review, I can only guess what the developers were thinking, but for this game that's so obscure there isn't even a page for it on Moby Games or Giant Bomb, I can find actual developer notes with a quick Google search. I can't tell you why Bruce Lee's greatest nemesis is a green sumo wrestler, or why it was determined that Santa Claus should grant firearms to supersonic penguins. I can't even tell you what Pac-Man's enemies are supposed to actually be, but I can tell you that this game is about blob monsters portaling through solid glass because a developer thought it was too nonsensical for it to just be some guy and his clones merged into one ultimate man. So that's the first stage. The second stage is a different Escher construct where you only have one glebe that you must split into multiple other glebes. In other words, the objective is the complete opposite of the last one. I guess it's because you entered a mirror? So now everything is the opposite? I mean, even the timer is backwards. This game is like Franz Kafka wrote a video game adaptation of Primer. I've had more coherent dreams after a week of watching Shrek ASMR videos in bed while sick with the brain flu. Thankfully, there's only these two stages, which is great because my brain is already a fantastic pudding from just 2 stages of this ludicrocracy. Yes, that's a word I made up. Don't look it up. Wait, it's on Urban Dictionary. Oh, but just because there's only 2 stages doesn't mean there isn't still more to the game. See, at higher skill levels, the game introduces lizards. Figuring out solutions to this mind molester isn't tough enough. Now, while merging protoplasms on a mathematically Sisyphean construct, you can also be attacked by reptiles, who split you apart, or merge you back together, whichever is more inconvenient, and given enough time, turn into birds. It makes sense if you consider dinosaurs. I don't think that's what the developers had in mind, but whatever. Dinosaurs explains everything to me. But if the lizards touch a glass of water, they turn into fish. Because... also dinosaurs? And if you eat this transmogrified lizard fish, it gives you more time, because transmogrified lizard fish contain chronomorphic displacement cells that, when absorbed, give you temporary powers over time itself? Maybe? And if you touch a bird, you lose time. You know what? Dinosaurs is the answer. I'm tired of trying to figure out all these weird games, and I'm just gonna say the answer is dinosaurs. Good night, dinosaurs!